Okay, are we ready? Are we ready, Rob? Oh, he gave me the finger. I mean, he's the guy, yes, the yes sign. He gave me the yeah. I might get that right. I don't know why. Welcome everybody to the. Let's see if I got my month right. To the October Speakers Bureau. We will have another Speakers Bureau on the 5th of November, and
Okay.
we're going to do something special on the 1st of November. But maybe we have someone that will talk about that a little bit. Did you want to do that now? Why don't you come on up and do that now while I'm thinking about what I'm supposed to say next? But welcome for you. Last month, I just talked a little bit of a report of what's gone on before. Of course, I always have to thank Rob Gunneman, our tech wizard in the back, and Sharon Kenty for putting out the publicity, and the district for allowing us to exist. And that's always important to allow us to exist. The VA hospital for giving us a location to do this. And who did I miss? I'm sure I missed somebody. But anyway, thank you all for being here. And it's not quite the attendance we had last month. Back by popular demand, we are bringing back more school stories. Last month we had 15 in person. Somebody couldn't make it, so we would have been 16, giving 3 to 5 minute speeches about school stories. And I required they come in person, but there were so many people that still wanted to present. Well, okay, let's open it up. So we'll probably have the majority of our speakers will be online this time. And so but we did allow another, I expect 17 tonight. So let's see how well we can squeeze in 17 speakers back to back to back. And traditional introduction of speakers usually involves an introduction and a little bit more about their speech, let alone their name and time and so on. Because we're squeezing so many into this speakathon, where you don't get any of that rigmarole. You get your name and the title and the name, and you go to it and tell us your school story. This has been so popular, I couldn't believe it would be that popular. Anyway, we have program coming up next month, but special on November the 1. Sarah, tell us about November the 1st.
Absolutely. I'm going to stand a little close to you so our people online can hear me.
As long as she doesn't mind.
I'm getting okay. I'm okay. Okay. On November 1st, we are going to be hosting a fall event. We're going to be at the Arrowhead Regional Medical Center. The event is going to be sponsored by the Inland Empire Speakers Bureau. So we are going to have a showcase of evaluation and humorous speeches, as well as some other fun events and educationals. We're going to do some expo tables to help get people more incorporated. We're calling them Toastmasters, expo tables. So lots of information, lots of fun. So please join us at 8:30 in the morning at Arrowhead Regional Medical Center.
Okay, all right, thank you. Yeah, especially part of that will be a training by our own Dominique Fruchtman, who will be giving you better instructions on how to do better evaluations. And so there'll be an evaluation contest, and I would be extremely disappointed in all my qualified speakers if I don't get at least 15 people to volunteer for the evaluation. I can't use the word contest, but what I'm going to tell you, because International says, no, you can't call it a contest. So I'm telling you what's going to happen. We'll have 15 presenters. They will be judged by the audience, just like we do at Speakers Bureau. And at the end, they'll get trophies. Now, I don't know if that's a contest or not, but each of them is going to try to beat the other one. So,
hey, Tom, it's competition. Competition.
It's a event, a demonstration of great speaking, 15 humorous speakers, and 15 evaluation, we hope. And if, like I said, I'll be very embarrassed if some of my QSs don't volunteer to be, because I believe in my heart, I do believe that almost all of the really good evaluators are in this organization. Our speakers have been going through all these processes of being evaluated in long-term Toastmasters. So the best evaluators, I believe, in the district are in Speakers Bureau. With that, we are ready to roll. I think I will get to my program. And I just turned my back on you, so nobody write me an evaluation, since you're not supposed to do that. And we will have some people who have requested early and some people who have requested late. Some people have requested they couldn't be here because it's Yom Kippur. But anyway, we will forgive them. And Michael Alexander will be back next month to be able to present a special treat. I think he's going to do The Raven, and he is really good. And he'll do that from memory and be able to, because it's right around Halloween, right? Next month, it will be November 5, so we will hear that. We have some presentations from, we have a qualified speaker candidate going next month, And who knows, we may have one more. So we've got a lot of program going on next month, so make sure you do not miss that one. Try to be here in person. My personal belief, it's so much more important to have an audience to speak to, and for the speaker and those in the audience. And so everyone gains a lot by being able to be in person. Okay, now I have to put down my order and call upon what I'm going to try to do is let the first speaker know they're speaking, and I'll mention the next speaker. So they're prepared to come right on up and get started. Okay. All right, let's go with it. And we will begin all the school story speeches. And let's go, we'll go with somebody in person. So let's start with an in-person person. And let's have Checo Kegi, followed by, we'll go with an online person after that. So Checo, followed by, let's go Charles Radney. Charles Radney will be the next speaker. So Checo Kegi with her speech, My Brother and a Pole. My Brother and a Pole, Checo Kegi.
Okay.
Squeeze in.
Good evening, everyone. How are you this evening? This is a story about my brother, Shohei, and his pole. It was his first day at the kindergarten, and it was pouring in the morning. My mom and I took him to this kindergarten. He had no idea what is going to happen. And we actually regret that we didn't introduce him properly to this new environment. So we arrived maybe 15 minutes before the class started. And after we were chatting, he was not playing with other kids, as most kids usually do, because he was a little bit shy, but he didn't know anyone. Although we had some neighbors, little kids, he was not part of the group. This is because the situation where our house was built. So there's a corner of this neighborhood. This side, there are lots of kids, but on this side where my house was, didn't have very many kids. So he didn't get to know any of those younger kids. Well, that's one thing. And on that rainy day, since I was in elementary school, so my school didn't start until the following week. So my mom and I took him to this kindergarten. Since he didn't know what was going on, he didn't play with anyone, he was just trying to chat with us. And when the time came that we have to leave and he had to stay at the school. What? Are you leaving me? No, can I come with you? So he just didn't like it at all. And he found this pole at the corner of the playground. So he clung to this pole and didn't want to move. Well, if you are going, and then I'm not allowed to go with you, then I'll just hug this pole. So I don't have to go in the classroom. And as far as I can remember, he was holding and hugging this pole at least 10 minutes. And finally, the teacher, Mrs. Kind, came out of her classroom and started talking to my brother Shohei. But of course, he thought, I don't know, this is a stranger who's trying to talk to me. So Mrs. Kind finally asked us, why don't you leave your son to me? So we had no choice but have to leave. And we were walking toward our home we heard his crying. It got louder every second. And about 2 blocks, he was still crying. And I bet because I couldn't look him back, because if I were to do that, then he will come after us. But I didn't hear anyone coming after us. And I realized he must have been either still clinging on the pole, or Mrs. Kind must be holding him by his hand. Either way, I couldn't see him. I couldn't see him at all, because then I would have started crying. Actually, I cried, but the rain covered me so nobody would notice. So when I was going home with Mom, I realized this is the worst day to him. The sky fell on him. It was that devastating experience. Can you imagine, even an adult, if you go into somewhere where you don't know anyone, now nobody recognized me. You know how devastating that is. It's a scary moment. And he was only 5 years old, and he tried to find out which way to go, what to say, and he could not enjoy it at all. So he just either cry or cling to the pole. So that was his first day experience. And I felt so bad, because as a big sister, I should have done something, introducing him and shared with him what might happen on the first day at school. Because I didn't. I made him cry so badly. Even now, years after, decades after actually, I still feel bad. If we were to share what we did when we went to school first day, then he might have behaved much better. That is my story, my brother Shohei and his pole.
Thank you, Chico. Now, Shohei, that makes me think of baseball, but anyway. And anyway, he got to be hit first up at bat in this playoff. He hit a home run on the first time up, so that's pretty special. Okay, next speaker will be Charles, followed by Al Batinga. Al, online, are you there? I think I saw your name. Okay. All right. Our second speaker, which will be online, Charles Radney. Don Freeman, teacher, mentor, friend. Don Freeman, teacher, mentor, friend, Charles Radney.
Don Radney, Don Freeman, teacher, friend, mentor. I'm dedicating my presentation tonight to my dad. Can everyone see my screen? I'm dedicating my presentation tonight to my dad, whose birthday would be today. He would be 104 years old. If you can imagine, 1964, I'm in the 9th grade. We just sat down for dinner, and the 1964 version of breaking news. On the news, we hear the Cleveland Public School System has just fired Don Freeman for supposedly teaching his students about Black nationalism. All of a sudden, the room goes totally quiet. There's 4 sets of eyes, or four eyes looking at me. My dad's looking at me, my mom's looking at me, and my mom goes, "Isn't that your teacher?" I go, "Well, I'm thinking, I go to Kennard, that's my teacher." But my bigger question is, why was he fired? I don't even know what Black nationalism is. He certainly hasn't talked to me about it. He certainly hasn't talked to our class about it. And with all the time that I'd spent at the library with my dad, and with all the time I'd spent using the World Book encyclopedias that my parents had bought for me, And with all the things that I quote unquote thought I knew, and then I realized right in that moment that even though both my parents had migrated from the South to the North, that they had never talked at all with myself or with any of my cousins, or never heard anyone talk about why they came to the North, and really wondered what all of that was about. What was Black nationalism even about? Why had I never even heard about Black nationalism? What in the world had I missed? The next day at school, the first thing I did was to ask my other classmates, had anyone else heard about Black nationalism? And no one else had, which set all of us on a kind of a path of what in the world just happened? Why was our world turned upside down for something that we knew nothing about? And as we started asking other students in the school about it, had anyone else heard about it? Had he approached anyone else about it? After we kind of went through other children in the school and some people we knew had graduated, we finally found maybe one or two people who have been potentially approached or mentioned, but not enough for him to have been fired, which just really opened up the floodgate of what just happened. Now, when you look at someone like me, when you tell me no, that just means I need to find out what happened. And that started the curiosity point for me to find out what actually was going on. Now, when you live in a city like Cleveland, Ohio, which was a very segregated city, we lived in a quote unquote working class neighborhood. Our parents owned their home. Yes, it was segregated, but I wasn't exposed to quote unquote the neighborhoods where people were renters, or the neighborhoods where people were requiring the city to pay for their rent or subsidize their income. That's not what I was exposed to. The church I went to, there were teachers and lawyers and doctors at that church. So I was not exposed to the people who were, quote unquote, would have been more involved or drawn to something like Black nationalism. But I've been sheltered, if you would, so to speak. It really made me become curious. Don Freeman became a magnet for me. He was my teacher initially. But as things evolved in my life, and I got more involved in looking into what Black nationalism was and reconnected with Don, by that time he was thoroughly ensconced in being a Black nationalist. And at that point, I was a fledgling in the Black Panther Party. I was 18, he was 10 years older than me. He became a mentor to me. He became someone who I looked up to, someone who I followed a lot, who I bounced ideas across. Over the years, he became very involved in the community. He became a part of the school board. He went to all the school board meetings. He became involved with helping the community. He became someone over the next years that over years and years and years, he and I talked at least twice a month. It did settle down to maybe twice a year, but we always talked and bounced ideas off each other. He became very involved in the community, and he was a person who, as a center of the community, was very involved in helping the youth in the community. He became the director of the League Park Center. The League Park Center was where the Cleveland Buckeyes were initially played. That was the Cleveland team for the Negro Baseball League. So he was a very basic part of the inner city and the Black community. Now, as things were, he did write a book recently called Reflections of a Resolute Radical. My initial intention was to reach out to Don and have Don be on the call tonight so he could hear as I talked about him and hopefully get his input and some feedback from Don and just to let him know that he was a constant part of my life. However, on Tuesday, when I called his house to have Don invited to this meeting, unfortunately, I found out at that point that Don had passed 2 days ago. So this is a memorial to Don, who passed on July 21st of this year. Back to you, Tom.
Rob, you have Tom on mute.
I mentioned already who that was. It was, oh, Al Batinga, you're here, right, Al?
I am.
Are you here?
Yep,
Okay,
I'm
and
here.
then this, after Al will be Lois Sicking. Go ahead, Al. Are you ready to go?
I am.
All right. We may have got that out of order, but we will take care of it. Take it away, Al.
Have you ever been the recipient of unforeseen circumstances? Have you ever not been a victim of unforeseen circumstances? I'm Al Bating. I'm excited to be your Speakers Bureau. So when I was a sophomore in high school, I had this brilliant idea. I was not doing well in chemistry. So most of you know, because I've told my story many times, I lived in a 10-bedroom boarding house with my parents, living in the same room. I didn't think it could get worse than that, if you can think at 15. Anyways, I had this bright idea. I was going to borrow the test, the chemistry test. So I broke into my teacher's office, borrowed the test, passed it out to 3 of my friends, thinking I could get by. I could go without foreseen circumstances. I had this brilliant head on my shoulders at 15. We got caught, all 3 of us, 4 of us. I gave it to 3 of my friends, and we all failed. So I got like a D plus out of the class because I had been doing okay. So I thought that was it. You know, they were going to charge me for breaking and entering and theft. Who could do that to a 15-year-old nice guy? Anyways, my parents got furious. Now, my parents are poor, and we come from a poor family. Every last ounce of money went to the Philippines to support their brothers and sisters and all of that. But my parents got so furious at 15, they decided they were going to send me to the boarding school. They made it happen some way, shape, or form. They got in my face, they got angry, and they said, this guy's on a way to life of crime. We're going to stop it right now. So I went from living in the bedroom with my mom and dad till I was 15 to moving into a room with 5 other troubled boys, just like me, troublemakers just like me, crazy just like me. And I spent the next 2 years, junior and senior in high school, in that place. Now, if you haven't lived in a dorm, in a boarding school, I went from a boarding house and graduated to a boarding school, if you can imagine that. They tell you when to wake up. They tell you when to have breakfast. They tell you when to have lunch. They tell you when to study. They give you an hour of TV. I went from stifled to worse than that, if you can imagine that. And so that's my story of this unforeseen consequence. And what it did, by the way, is when I left there, I went into the military and I shared a room with 70 other crazy people like me waiting for Vietnam, because I was young at that point in time. We didn't go because it started to de-escalate. But if you can imagine 70 other recruits being worked with from Vietnam vets, not a good thing. Let's just put it that way. And then I went to Quantico, Virginia, and I ended up with 100 people. They put me in an MOS, military occupational specialist, in corrections, which I did not want, I did not desire, I did not expect. Maybe it's God saying, Al, this is where you're going to be. I'm going to put you on the outside of the bars for a little while, but you will be inside of the bars if you continue on the path you're going. So anyways, to Speakers Bureau, that is my story of unforeseen consequences that put me into about 10 years of my life, if you include my childhood, about 18 years of my life living in the same room. So friends ask me, why do you go to movies by yourself? Why do you eat dinner all the time by yourself? It's because I had my fill of company.
Thank you, Al. And let me apologize for I got out of discombobulated and I didn't get your title, but you made sure it got in there. So our next speaker I have is Lois, and she's online. Lois, followed by by Steve Babiak. Steve, are you there? Okay, it'll be Lois Sicking with her title. I'm not going to forget this time, I hope. Lois Sicking, Life with Nuns as Teachers. I'm looking forward to hearing about this. Life with Nuns as Teachers, Lois Sicking.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster Tom, fellow Toastmasters. Yes, I am living a life with nuns as teachers, or don't judge a book by its cover, or how I learned that appearances can be misleading and the true value of something or someone is often found from within. I began my academic career at 5 years old at Sacred Heart Elementary School in Munster, Texas. I grew up in a small town of 1,100 people. 95% were German Catholic. All of us were related to each other. Every family was expected to send a son to seminary to become a priest and a young daughter to the convent to become a nun. So when I went to Sacred Heart Elementary School, I knew that most of the nuns knew my family for generations. And like my mother said, be nice to everyone, because when you die, they will be looking down on your grave and they will remember everything from the first grade. Well, that was impactful. Now, going to the first grade, I was very confident. I had this. Why? Because unlike Chaco's brother, we were required to go to the elementary school, first grade, for 2 hours the year before. So I was there with my sister for 2 hours. I had this all figured out. I already met the nun that was going to teach me. Her name was Sister Henrietta, and she was tough, but I'm tougher. I can follow rules. So I'm very confident. So I go to, and I sit down in the classroom of about 28 children. Well, I grew up in a somewhat supportive environment at home. And Sister Henrietta started calling everybody up in alphabetical order. So she called Jack Flishy up. She called this one. Then she said Lois Sicking. Well, I was there writing a note. She said, Lois, please come forward. I ignored her. And then she said, Lois Sicking, come here immediately. I thought, okay, that's more like it. So I get up there and she says, you need to come the first time I call you. And so for you to learn, you need to go stand in the corner with your nose in the corner. I thought, oh my gosh, what is this? You adults, you need to get your rules straight. My mother calls me 3 times before I go anywhere. Well, you need to know that I have 10 brothers and sisters. There are 11 of us. I was number 6. By number 6, as long as I got my chores done, I could go do anything. We ran wild. So that nun was so rude, rude. So I may have my nose in the corner and I'm looking at the Starving Children and Biafra poster going, wow, this was unexpected. And that was, and so don't judge a book by the cover, because I expected her to be safe and warm and nurturing, and she wasn't, not at all. 2nd grade, I had Sister Frances. 3rd grade, I had Sister Alberta. 4th grade, I had Sister Mary John. And then 5th grade, Sister Georgia. I looked forward to Sister Georgia's being my teacher. I felt blessed. Why? My father used to date Sister Georgia. They were planning on getting married. And in a farming community, every Sunday afternoon, the boys went dating. They went courting. So my dad would show up to Georgia's house and they were getting serious. Well, her family didn't like that. So the next Sunday, after he was coming one Sunday, and she wasn't there. Oh, she went to convent. They sent her to convent because they did not want her to marry my father. Okay, this was a story that I was told. So when I walked into Sister Georgia's room and she called my name, we looked at each other. I knew who she was and she knew who I was. She could have been my mother. I could have been her child. And I thought, well, let's see what my dad's first choice for my mom was. I love my mother. I want to get that straight. So anyway, I liked her, a quiet demeanor, and she wasn't, abrasive like Sister Henrietta. What really turned my life around was when she gave us the concept as fifth graders about lying. She said, lying's not good. She said, but I want to tell you where you can need to consider. She said, if the Nazis come for you and they say, is your father or your parents doing this and that? You need to say no. And it's no to the evil of the world, not no that your parents aren't talking against the Gestapo. I thought, whoa, that's pretty slick. Who would have ever thought a nun would be telling me that? She amped it up one more step. She said, most of you will become mothers. And there, if it ever comes down to your children don't have food to eat or not shelter, you just need to do what you need to do to get money to put food on the table for your children. I knew what that meant. I'm still getting goosebumps about it. And I thought, I'm honored to hear this from a nun and that you could have been my mother. What this taught me again is don't judge a book by its cover, and that you need to walk into every meeting everyone, not knowing what you can learn from them. And I think of Sister Georgia often, and when she died, I grieved for her. And I still have some materials, her obituary. Thank you, Sister Georgia, and thank you, Sister Henrietta. Back to you, Tom.
All right, thank you. Lois, you and I have known each other for a long time, but I felt my heart really went out for you with the first words of your speech where you said everybody in your school was a relative. And I thought, now, how must have made dating really tough. Anyway, we'll
It
get on to
did,
it.
but anything beyond first cousins.
Our next speaker is Steve Babiak, followed by Suzanne Leonard. So Steve Babiak, it's a cruel world. It's a cruel world, Steve Babiak, all the way from Texas. Steve.
That's right,
Steve.
Tom. That's right, Tom. It is a cruel world. And let me tell you why. When I was in 8th grade, I couldn't wait for high school. The reason being, we lived right across the street from the high school. If it was warm out and we had the windows open, you could hear the bells ringing in the high school. I couldn't wait. I was just going to be walking right across the parking lot at the last minute, come home for lunch. This was going to be great. Until the end of the school year when I was in 8th grade, and over across the street at the high school, on one day, they had 7 drug overdoses. One day. Now, don't think terrible because nobody died. It was more like 7 people walking around like zombies back then. And they called the EMS, and it was a big thing, and it made big news because we were a little suburban high school. Mom got wind of that and said, you're not going to school there. You're going to Catholic high school. It's a cruel world. It is a cruel world. So because these 7 knuckleheads did drugs and OD'd in high school, because of them, I go from being able to walk across the parking lot to high school to taking 2 city buses. In fact, at night, sometimes 3 city buses to get home. And not only that, wearing a school dorky uniform, which includes a tie. Also, across, one thing I didn't mention, it was an all-boys high school. There goes my dating life. There it goes, all because these 7 knuckleheads. You think you hate, let me tell you, that's right when they should have declared the war on drugs. All right, so Mom has ruined my life. Those 7 ODs have ruined my life. And I'll tell you, I tried to
Steve, you're frozen. We can't hear you. Well, Tom, can we come back to him?
I think it's part of that overdose.
No, that's a cliffhanger he's doing.
You want to the next one?
Yeah.
Maybe come back to him. He's good enough. I know he can handle coming back to the middle of his speech. Okay, I mentioned that Suzanne Leonard is next, followed by. Oh, Michael Osher next. Michael Osher would be online. Suzanne Leonard, and her speech is the oatmeal box. The oatmeal box, Suzanne Leonard.
It was Monday morning. We loved the magic of Monday morning in my first grade class because it was Marvelous Monday. And the reason it was Marvelous Monday was because we were introduced to the week's spelling words. And so we were writing them out on our desk in chocolate pudding. Yay! What a great way to meet your spelling words of the week. Terrific Tuesday had its points, though. We'd take those same spelling words that we had done in chocolate, and we would make up rhymes and sentences and songs, and we would sing them all week long. But fellow Toastmasters, welcome guests, qualified speakers, it was Wonderful Wednesday that was our favorite. Wonderful Wednesday was Science Sharing Day. And this Wednesday was Science Sharing Day for Paul. We loved it when it was Paul sharing time because Paul knew so many sciencey kinds of things. So Paul came from his seat in the back of the class promptly up with an oatmeal box tucked under his arm. He carefully put it on the sharing table. Were all eyes on the oatmeal box, and he opened it up and he took out a hummingbird nest. Oh my gosh, a hummingbird nest. And he showed it to us. And then he began to tell us all about the hummingbird and the hummingbird nest. Like, did you know that a hummingbird can fly backwards? And those same teeny tiny wings helps that hummingbird migrate from the forests in South America north for the winter. Paul knew so many cool things about hummingbirds. And so back in the box went the hummingbird. Fast forward to Fabulous Friday, the day before Christmas holidays. There were cookies and cocoa and presents. Oh my, cookies and cocoa and presents. Oh my, but no Paul. Paul was not one to miss a classroom celebration. Pretty soon, the door opened and in came Paul with the oatmeal box tucked under his arm. he put it down on the sharing table. And I said, Paul, it's not your sharing day. It's not Wednesday. It's the day before the holidays. I know, Mrs. Leonard, he said, but I just wanted you to have the hummingbird for Christmas. I said, Paul, you love that hummingbird nest for Christmas? He said, well, it's not really your gift. It's kind of a gift to the classroom because I think we all liked it. And Miss Leonard, could you just leave it on your desk for a little while so we could all enjoy it for Christmas? I said, sure. And he said, but there's one thing. You have to leave it long enough so all of us can take a look at it. Would that be okay? Well, sure, Paul. Thank you. That's the best Christmas present ever. And friends, do you know, this year I am celebrating 28 years with our hummingbird nest. Tom.
Suzanne. Suzanne, yes. Well, we're hearing stories all different worlds of our school experience. Okay, I mentioned, I think we have Michael Osher as the next speaker, followed by Sarah Carney will be in. Michael Osher's speech. He was the queen. He was the queen, Michael Osher.
It was late September of 1975. Yes, 50 years ago. I'm a long-haired, bearded 20-year-old third-year college student about to start that third year to study philosophy and religion at the University of Durham in northern England, 270 miles north of London, 18 miles south of Newcastle on the East Coast. I arrived on Thursday, classes to start on Monday. I was the only American in my college. In England, when you go to these fancy old universities, you live in what's called a college. We would call it a dorm, but it's with people who study similar topics to which you study. It's called a college. Our college was called St. John. I'd met a few kids on that first day. The next day, Friday, they tell me, surprise, the Queen Mum is coming to visit us on Saturday. And you, Yank, get to have a spot of tea with her. The Queen Mum? You mean the mother of Queen Elizabeth? The beloved icon and hero of England? In World War II, she used to go to the bombed out homes of London to talk to the families. These homes had been bombed the previous day by the German Air Force. She was the most loved of British royals. I'd read about her, but a Yank 2 days in England gets to meet the Queen Mum? Oh my God. It turns out the royal family supported the College of St. John in Durham. Who knew? I certainly didn't, and I didn't know what that meant. My newfound friend Elaine said, okay, Yank, you need a suit and a tie, good shoes to meet the Queen Mum. I'm a college student. I arrived in England with a backpack. Let's see what I had. 2 pairs of jeans, a dress-up pair of corduroys, 3 t-shirts, a flannel shirt, and a pair of Nike running shoes. In England, those running shoes are called trainers. That was it. I mean, I'm in college. I'm not buying a suit and a tie to meet anybody, much less, oh well, what can I tell you? Elaine felt sorry for me, but she took me downtown and we found what's called a black scholar's robe. And those, turns out, you have to wear to dinner 3 nights a week, but it would be perfect for meeting the Queen Mom. And that's as dressed up as I could be. There's no equivalent in America. We don't have a royal family. Maybe like meeting I don't know, Robert Kennedy's mother or something. I don't know. So the day came. There's 100 of us, all agog and anxious to meet the Queen Mom. Someone kept and grabs me and go, "Hey, Yank, we're moving you to the front of the line to meet the Queen Mom. You're the only American here. We got to represent the colonies." So there I am, blue jeans, flannel shirt, my trainers, my Nike running shoes, and my black robe. And I walk in and they go, "Queen Mom, this is our Yank." And she was so kind. She asked me how long I've been in England, how things were going in her own way. I don't remember what I said, but they did tell me that when we were done, oh, and of course, someone poured us tea, proper tea. And I sipped the tea and didn't spill a drop, thank God. And when you're done, my job was to stand up and bow and thank the Queen Mom. Soon the word was out through the whole university. There were 5,000 students there that I was the Yank that made the Queen Mom wearing blue jeans and trainers. Everyone wanted to talk to me. They all wanted to have a picture with me, and they all wanted to hear my story for the whole year, my claim to fame. So what did I learn about tea with the Queen Mom? Well, maybe clothes don't make the man, but don't spill the tea. Mr. Tom.
I'm told there's no special rigmarole, but I do have to mention Michael, the co-chair, Speakers Bureau, and past international director of all of Toastmasters International. So thank you for doing that presentation. And Steve Matthew online, if he would be available to finish his speech. I don't know if we can check on that or not. That's it. Our next speaker would be Sarah. We'll get Steve in if he's available after Sarah. And then after that, we would go to Van Powell after that. So let's see, Steve in if he's available. Starting next with speech, Sarah Kearney, and her speech is the Sarah Potts Award. The Sarah Potts Award, Sarah Kearney.
You're that Sarah Potts? I held my breath. I was in shock. I hadn't gone by that name in 15 years. The Sarah Potts. Now, I had moved back to my hometown, so I was getting accustomed to my old name coming back to the surface. But that particular reaction startled me because I had never met this person before. Let's rewind. Let's go back to high school. My senior year. Impossible for a plain yellow pumpkin to become a golden carriage. Impossible for a plain country bumpkin and a prince to join in marriage. Yes, it was the High School Musical, and I was the fairy godmother. It was my first lead role, and I was well on my way into my career in Broadway. Well, at least that was 18-year-old Sarah's fantasy world. We had an amazing show. It went off without a hitch. Every performance was wonderful. I was getting compliments and great feedback. And yes, I knew I was doing wonderful. We finished our last performance on closing night, and I did my best ever. And then it was time to tear it all down. We're still riding on the adrenaline and the energy and the excitement of being on stage and performing, but we had now changed out, put our hair back up into ponytails, and washed off the 18 layers of makeup. We're getting prepared to start breaking out the tools, tearing things down. And I'm talking to a friend of mine. and we're going up the steps onto the stage. And I decide to turn and keep talking to my friend. And then the ground fell from behind me. I landed. Well, I had been a figure skater, so of course I landed. But my knee gave out. I crashed to the ground, sprawled on the floor, and the orchestra pit. We laughed, we cried. I spent 6 weeks on crutches. You would have thought it would have stopped there. That was 15 years earlier. And here I am at a friend's house on New Year's Eve, talking to her brother, who's about 5 years younger than me. We're chatting and we're talking and we're chatting about school. You went to Rim of the World, right? I did. I graduated in 2001. He paused and he looked at me and he goes, 2001? Sarah, you were in theater? I was in theater. What's your full name? Well, then it would have been Sarah Potts. You're that Sarah Potts. I had never met this person before in my life, but I was that Sarah Potts. Turns out that after my glorious exit, my senior year, the high school drama teacher decided to do some fun awards. I had hit legendary status. For every single year, there was a Sarah Potts Award for the clumsiest, klutziest person in theater throughout the year. Luckily, they finally retired it, but it took about 15 years for it to go away. So.
Thank you, Sarah Potts. Oh, no, Sarah Carney. We got to get it right, but we'll remember that. So it's nice to be remembered. That's all. Always nice to be remembered. Sometimes it's nicer to be remembered than other times, right? Was Steve Babiak, is he there and available to come in and make sure we see whether there's a happy ending to that story? Okay, I don't see Steve. Okay. All right. So then we will go back to the normal order. And I think our next speaker is Van Powell, chased by a rubber ruler, Van Powell. And after that, we'll go with Charlotte Noggle, if Charlotte Noggle is here. So make sure she is. I think I saw her. So Van Powell, next.
Yes, thank you, Tom. Fellow Toastmaster, I don't know how school was for you, but for me, it was a very interesting time because I had a teacher. His name was Mr. Tom Swaggerty. First of all, cool last name. And when I heard about this topic about thinking about schools and all that from Tom, I'm like, wow, of all the time I went to school, I was a total nerd. I would be hauling this really gigantic roller backpack with all of my textbook. And for elementary school, we usually shove all those books into our desks. I was that weird kid where it's school, school, and more school. I went through every single assignment. I did them first. I already have a whole bunch of lists. And then at that time, for fourth graders, we were learning about California, the mission, and all those other nonsensical stuff that I can't really remember why I learned it for some reason. But it was weird. This teacher, he was very interesting. He saw through all my packets. He was like, since you're done already, maybe you should go get a boyfriend or something. I was like, a fourth grader? Dating? That doesn't really go together. But it was always strange because no one liked him. And it's pretty common. No one really likes majority of their teacher. They usually be like, that person's very mean. They gave me so much assignment, or I was eating in class and they point that out. Whatever. But it was strange because Mr. Swaggerty, He believed on hands-on motivation. While most teachers usually would stand on the sideline and would be yelling, "Run faster!" Mr. Swaggerty actually ran after us. Picture this. We got 39-year-olds gasping for air, running around the yard, and there's a grown man in his polo shirt charging at us at full speed. And it's like, you can do better than that. It's just running, running, running. And let me tell you, when a teacher is sprinting behind you, clapping, hollering, you don't run for fitness, you run for survival. And then there was a ruler. Not just any ruler, it's a big, floppy rubber ruler. For some reason, I will never understand, but Mr. Swaggerty, he thought that was going to be the ultimate motivation tool. If you slow down, he'll be waving. It's like the rubber ruler is in there, like a sword of justice. And if you were lagging, he would be snapping against his hand with a loud whack. Of course, there's no punishment or whatsoever, but to these 9-year-old, it was scary. It was so terrifying because the sound, he was just like smacking it against his hand. I'm like, why are we doing this? I ran faster than I can in my life. And I have very short, stubby legs, so I don't know what I was doing, but it was crazy because we were a pack of little kids being chased by this man with a bendy ruler, like some crazy Olympic. But at that time, I thought he was just crazy, strict, and what the heck is going on? We rolled our eyes. We were just panic, totally crazy. But the truth is, he made the most effort. He ran beside us, not just sipping coffee and like, okay, my kids are running. I'm going to be on my phone, or hey, look, there's another teacher. Let's go talk to them or something. But he actually taught us grit, resilience, and actually the power of just pushing us farther than we thought we could go. And so when today I thought about when life gets hard, I could still hear Mr. Swaggerty just yelling at me and say, "Come on, you can do that." Oh man, I can still remember the floppy ruler. That's why I'm scared of buying actual floppy ruler in my home. And I suddenly just found the motivation to keep going. So, fellow Toastmaster, may we all have a little of Mr. Swaggerty's in us. The courage to be strict when it matters, the energy to put in effort, and maybe even the creativity to carry around a rubber ruler just in case someone needs a little extra attention. Back to you, Tom.
And all that and a moral to besides, a lesson for us to take away. That's really, really good. We love to hear that. Okay, our next speaker scheduled to speak is Charlotte Noggle. I'll follow that up with Greg Scott. So, Greg, you'll be right after Charlotte. So go ahead, Charlotte. And your topic is the call that changed everything. The call that changed everything, Charlotte Noggle. Here we go.
Charlotte,
We're
you're
still
muted.
not.
I want to start again.
All right, start again.
Otto, I'm sorry. Okay, yes, I will start again. It came on an ordinary afternoon when I was sitting on my balcony, which I love to do, watching the activity on the Nile River. I got the phone call, an important, very important phone call. "Is this the American teacher?" asked the Minister of Higher Education. "Yes." "Can you come and do a demonstration lesson for us? We have a special program." And I said yes before I even realized I'd even said it. And just like that, I found myself on a Monday morning in a classroom, not in a moment, because the next 7 years would shape my life. I walked into Cairo University. I was the only American on campus. 400 graduate students looked at me. They were staring back at me, wondering who was this person. But I smiled and I looked back at them. Now, the interesting thing is the young women were all on one side and the men were all on the other. And I thought, oh my God, there's a line between these. They don't even talk to one another except at break. And my job was to prepare them to work in international businesses in Egypt. My gosh, what have I done? I thought to myself. I stared at them. My Arabic was very weak, but then I found out that English was going to be, instruction would be all in English. Oh, well, that's good. So let's move forward, because I did see some possibilities. And the girls were darling and the men were cute. So I decided that I wouldn't come with a lecture. I would come with a bridge. I came to teach not just how to work in international companies, but how to work with emotional intelligence, how to navigate the complexity of life with ease and grace, and how to make ethics not just a policy, but a practice. But most important, how to reclaim the power of choice. You see, many Egyptians believe they have no choice. Fate is their life. So having to really give some instruction in that arena was tough. They laughed at my Arabic often. I laughed at their English. We told stories. We practiced. We did role play. Did things that they had never, ever done in their life. For 7 years, I stood in classrooms where curiosity burned much brighter than any fear, where students leaned in. When I was teaching in American universities, students leaned back. They were hungry for my perspective of the world. And I watched transformation unfold in their lives, not just in them, but in me as well. They were so much fun to work with. I loved being there. And as part of that work, as I grew in the time that I was there, I helped 7 students win Ford Foundation scholarships to complete their master's degree here in the United States. I was very proud of them and myself. And then came the Arab Spring. The streets erupted, schools closed, and I was evacuated, pulled from the work mid-sentence, mid-story. It felt like leaving a sacred space before my work was complete. But even in that crisis, I knew deep down that education has to be the force that equips people to live with empathy and purpose. Peace must be intentionally designed, and leadership must be the kind that heals conflict. Today, I carry those classrooms in my bones. That divided room in Cairo University etched in my soul, not as a memory, but now as a metaphor. Because when we choose to lead with courage, when we teach with the heart, when we build with meaning, even those divided spaces can become sanctuaries of learning and transformation. And it all started with a call that changed everything. Tom?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Charlotte. I knew of your experience, but I never thought I would gain such wisdom from hearing you speak. This is an outstanding presentation. Thank you for being here. I think the audience appreciates it also. I mentioned Greg Scott as the next speaker, and I'll have him followed by a person in the room. David, I'll have you be next, so I'll make sure you can get your the material and so on. So, all right, Greg Scott, a second time. Greg Scott, a second time.
Thank you, Tom, fellow Toastmasters. 1955, in fourth grade. How it reminds me. See Dick run. See Jane sing. See Spot jump. Wow. All those neat words in out of that book. And yet Miss Sykes says, Greg, you need to improve. You need to keep focusing it because you're not getting it right. Well, a year later, 1955, or 1956, I'm still in fifth grade, getting better at seeing Jane run and watching Spot sit. And so I'm going on and staying in lunch hour while all my friends are outside playing baseball for lunch or running around and enjoying themselves. There I am with Miss Sykes, this strict old focused school teacher with these hourglass eye looking through those glasses, working to make me learn how to be a better reader. Well, finally, when I finished that second year in fourth grade, she told me, she says, you know, Greg, it's tougher for some to learn, but Greg, you can find a way to learn, even if it's a second time. Even if it's a second time. Wow. Those are words that kind of stuck with me through my life. All the way through fifth grade to eighth grade, I was in the slow class or the learning class with more expert people trying to help you out. And then after high school, it was time for college. And in college, wow, I'm taking trigonometry, dendrology, a study of trees, etymology, study of insects, and surveying, and achieving my AA degree in forestry. By the way, that was the era of the slide rule, which we used in all of our classes. Still, I had to struggle, though. I was still good at taking notes, copious notes, and having to study them and repeat them over and over to do well on my tests and do my homework. But then came Vietnam. After I'd been working with CAL FIRE for a while in the Division of Forestry, I went into the Air Force in the fire crash rescue. And I went to Chinook Air Force Base after basic training for their firefighting school. Now, you say a second time, wow. I aced every written and every practical test on every piece of equipment. I set new records at that school for achieving the learning ability. Hey, Miss Sykes, no second time this time. I got it. I must have found something that worked for me. Fighting fires. Then back with the Division of Forestry at that time, or Department of Forestry, #1 in the basic fire control class. Dispatching class, #1. Fire management 1, 2, and 3, first in the class. Arson investigation, first in the class. Instructor at the academy. I guess when you find your niche and something becomes easy for you, it just seems that you learn it easier. And so I've always got back about what Miss Sykes was telling me. You know, Toastmasters as a district governor, our district 12 came in #3, President State that year. It wasn't first, but you know, working with a team of Toastmasters, hey, I was proud of that. A second time, in New Orleans in 1997, I lost a race for international director. But in 1998 in Palm Desert in the District 12, I ran solo after winning 93% at the region and went on as a lone candidate for that. So a second time there. Also a second and third time as a cancer survivor. Those were tough times to go through. Often you felt alone, but with friends it made it a little bit easier. But as Miss Sykes says, you find a way. Then came October 10th, 2015. As I picked up the phone as my granddaughter, Alicia, Mom has died. I said, what? She was murdered. She was shot in Torrance, California. My world fell to pieces. My little sweetheart. You see, at 2 years old, I was adopted. I was given a home, a second chance as an adopted kid. And I did the same thing for Tina. I adopted her at a young age and gave her a second chance. And so she was, in a way, very, very special to me. She always called me Papa and said I was her guardian angel, that I cared for her. I helped her through school. I helped her learn good financial practices. And she became a mother with three grandkids that I joined. So when I look at these things, I said to myself, Miss Sykes, how do I get a second chance when I lost my sweetheart, my daughter, somebody so in my heart? My world is busted. How do I deal with a second chance? And so when I think about that, folks, I love my daughter, and Miss Sykes always says you can find a way. I find a way to let the good things that she shared with me live through me, and I hope that it broadcasts out to folks like that. So I share with you, don't wait for a second chance. Go home and tell your kids how much you love them. I did, and I told my daughter Tina how much I loved her. Don't let another second go by without that second chance. Back to you, Tom.
That's my much wisdom in that presentation. Our next speaker is David, followed by Ralph Dieter. Ralph, you get that information. David, with his speech, makes me feel just like when I was in high school. Is it 2:30 yet? Is it 2:30 yet? David Williams.
Am I on? Okay. I hated. I was a horrible student, but I always got good grades. Mostly A's. But even though I got good grades, I hated school. I did homework as little as possible, and I studied for tests as little as possible. Folks, I was a horrible student. History tells us that the first school was established in Egypt in 2061 BC. I think my third grade teacher taught at that school. That's a joke. That's a joke. Mrs. Rosenthal was my third grade teacher, and I loved Mrs. Rosenthal. I liked all of my teachers, and all of my teachers liked me. But I hated school. But I always got great, well, you know. The next part is important. I want to assure you that I'm not bragging and I'm not proud of the fact that I neglected very unwisely to apply myself in school. But I still got great grades, mostly A's. But quite to the contrary, since my days in school, I have had moments, I'm talking about real moments, where I have regretted my childish apathy towards school. I have regretted my indiscretion regarding schools. Now, the length of those moments of regrets, those moments varied. And those moments usually ended when something happened that reminded me that I hated school. Now, my disdain for school and my frustration reached its zenith. It reached its apex when I was 11 years old. An 11-year-old can only take so much, right? So I was in the 6th grade, and this is when it happened. That was the day when my younger brother and I, Ricky, he wasn't real crazy about school either. Ricky and I decided we're going to play hooky. Now, I don't know which one of us suggested that we play hooky, but I do know that we got the idea from an episode of Leave It to Beaver. And I remember thinking, wow, this playing hooky thing, this is a great idea. So this is what I remember about what happened. The school day began at 8 a.m. And it ended at 2:30. Now from 8 a.m. to 2:30, that is forever. So regardless, we walked to school that day as we did every day. And when we got to school, we realized that we had made our first mistake. Because if you're going to play hooky, you can't let anybody at school see you, right? So fortunately, there was a booth off to the side, this wooden booth. Are you signaling me? Okay. Fortunately, there was a booth off to the side, and this wooden booth was about this tall. So Ricky and I jumped in the wooden booth, and we were going to hide there. Now, this means that our day of freedom, our day of hooky, was already off to a great start. So while we were hiding there, I remember thinking one thing over and over again: David, don't get caught. Now, we didn't get caught. So the next day, Ricky and I forged notes to give to the teacher explaining why we weren't at school. We hadn't thought that part out either. And it wasn't long after that when Ricky and I got up the courage to tell our parents what we had done. I think I was about 31 at the time. Now, the thing is, regarding our day of freedom, Ricky and I had planned to catch a bus, go to Long Beach, and ride all of the great rides at the Pike at Long Beach. It was an amusement park, but that's not the way that it worked out. Instead, the way that it worked out is we wound up crouched down in corduroy pants for 6.5 hours in this wooden booth. We didn't leave. We were too afraid. We didn't even put our heads up because there might be a nun walking around on the schoolyard, or Father McGovern might be out taking a stroll. I hated school. Clearly, that day did not work out the way that we anticipated it. So, Toastmasters, one day when I was in the 6th grade, I embarked upon a day of freedom, a day of hooky. That day began at 8 a.m., and that day seemed to last forever. Ricky and I spent the day crouched down in a wooden booth, and the only thing that I remember thinking about was, is it 2:30 yet? Mr. Toastmaster.
I see we have a candidate for the humorous event coming up. So.
Oh, you need need this, right?
Yeah, I don't need your phone. Anyway, think about signing up for that November 1 contest. Speaking of it, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, I saw the note. It was pretty quick, but I was reassured that Ralph Dieter, our next speaker, is thinking about signing up too. So hopefully we'll have a full contingent of competitors, and they'll be able to tell 3 or 4 people they can't make it anyway because there's too many. Ralph Dieter is our next speaker, and he will be followed by someone in our audience, Christine Fiera. You'll be next after that. So Ralph Dieter, an ode to Mrs. Crum, an ode to Mrs. Crum, Ralph Dieter.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, welcome guests. There have been many great teachers in my life. Thomas Mayer, one of the premier monetary and theory and policy economists in the US, and Leon Wege, a highly regarded econometric theorist, were very influential in my graduate studies. They caused me to specialize in their fields. But no one has had more impact on my education than than my fourth grade teacher, Mrs. Gladys Crew. She was a heavy-set woman with fire red hair and an iron will that could handle anything that little monsters with big mouths, like me, could perpetrate. I first met Mrs. Kroom when I was 9 years old. I had issues. My parents had split up within the past year, and I had trouble fitting in. I still had a bit of a German accent, and in the late 1950s, people in my school hadn't forgotten that my old country had fought against Americans and done bad things. I reacted to this overt ill will by being quite feisty. Mrs. Kroom knew how to handle me, though. She put me to work. One major thing we did in class was a lot of reading comprehension exercises. She noticed that I handled the fourth grade level projects too quickly and easily. That's because I read massive amounts of books at home. All of a sudden, she started giving me different projects than all the other students. What in the heck is going on? I found out decades later from my mom that Mrs. Kroom had started substituting projects several grade levels above the rest of the class. Boy, was she sneaky. It was not a bed of roses for me. I saw words which I guessed were scientific and government words which I had never heard of before. I started to lose confidence that I could do these advanced reading projects. Mrs. Kroom observed my loss of faith and pulled me aside. She told me, "Ralph, you can do this." I believed her and held my head high and completed the projects. I never looked back. Years later, when I was in graduate school, I went back to my old elementary school. I got permission to talk to Mrs. Gladys Kroom again. And she remembered who I was. Wow. I told her I was working on my PhD in economics. She cried. Then I cried. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Ralph. I'm not gonna cry, but I love to hear those.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you decided to have one more month of those presentations. Thank you for sharing. Glad you volunteered. Christine Fiera is our next speaker. I will follow that with Melinda. Christine Fiera. The Friday Bell. Christine Fiera.
There you go. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Okay, that didn't work, so let's move on. You were supposed to hear the school bell ringing. What did the school bell mean to you? When you hear the ding, the ding, the ding, what did it mean to you? For me, it meant a weekend of fun. It's time to go and visit my favorite aunt. One of them. I had several for each different parts of my life. That bell meant I had to hurry home, finish my chores, do my homework, and pack my bag because the fun begins. School is where you learn all the technical details, the math, numbers, reading, writing. But a life out of school and the bell rings, I'm all in. I pack my bag and I walk many miles to this favorite aunt because she is going to show me the world where you get to go on the farm, where you have fun, you play with animals, you feed the chickens, and you have fruit trees everywhere. The river runs behind the house, and you cook fresh food. That to me was fun. My Fridays, before I get to her house, I would stop by another cousin house. We call her Aunt Lita. That's where I learned to chat, ask questions, and find out what life is all about. Aunt Lita would sit and answer all of her questions. She was a woman of wisdom and stature. As I grew older, I still used to go to her house because there's always some points to learn from Aunt Lita. Visit with her for a few minutes and then on to the rest of my journey, on to Aunt Bertha and Uncle Fred, because that means that's where I get on the truck and we go on the highway into the farm life. No traffic. One day at the farm, though, I was walking around the farmyard and I saw this mango. It was bigger than my head. So I pulled it and I run to Aunt Bertha. Aunt Bertha, look what I found. She looked at me and she said, Joy, that is not even ready. To my disappointment, I didn't know any better. It looked big. I'm used to small mangoes and pretty colors, and that was good for me. But not everything that's mature is ready. So I then left that alone and moved on. There's more projects to learn because that was one Friday, and my other Fridays, I would spend it in leadership classes, at Girl Guides, go camping, learn how to plan, learn how to cook, learn how to be a leader in my own group. Those skills then continue to resonate in my life. It's beautiful for you to do what you do. And at the age of 7, I started. I continue up until now. I'm past 70, and I love it. I enjoy life. Have you ever had an opportunity to go to a farm, play with animals, feed the chickens? Have you ever? If you haven't, that's a joyous part of your life. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed grabbing the mango, and I enjoyed that freedom has a price. Do your homework, finish your chores. You get to visit the neighbors. You get to visit the family. You get to go on trips. And the lessons you learn from those events will take you a lifetime. I continue to use them and serve others in the same facet with polished message etiquette. I return control to Tom.
You, Christine. Yeah. Well, listen,
Well, you didn't get to hear the bell, so.
well, there are a few more times. Thank you for sharing all those things. We're getting to know so much about our speakers that I'm pretty glad we did.
Oh, I need to give her this.
Maybe, maybe that could be heard otherwise. Let's see.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, now our next speaker after Christine will be, I gotta see who's here. I can't see who else is in the audience that I haven't seen, but we will get to that. All right, next speaker is, I should have mentioned who it was. So where did I go to that?
Melinda.
I'm here,
Oh,
Tom.
Melinda, and then I want to mention who comes after Melinda, which would be Judy Van Arsdale. But Melinda Maganzo is next. Go take away, Melinda, with your topic. Show me what you've got. Show me what you've got, Melinda Maganzo.
Okay, good evening, Inland Empire Speakers Bureau. I'm so glad to be here at class tonight. I'm in my doctoral program at Cal Baptist, studying leadership studies. Yay! So, Ralph, you're going to show me, you said, Rod, you're going to show my screen, or should I show it myself? Can you see my screen, you guys?
Yes.
I can't see it. All right, let's go.
It's really small.
Okay, I thought Rob was going to share it for me. Where's my PowerPoint? Okay, let me go here. Can you guys see it now?
We can see it, but it's really small. You may want to take it. Who has
Melinda, I think
Michael?
I think you're spotlighting yourself. We need to not spotlight you, Melinda.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. So Rod, did you put it up? Rod, do you have it?
Give him a second. It's
Yes, now
loading. There we go.
we got it now, Melinda.
All right, and so good evening. And so show me what you've got. You can turn to the next slide. For me, I'm going to talk about my journey. December 12, 2022, I came home from class. And when I was attempting to get in my bed, guess what happened to me? I fell backwards on the ground. I hit my head. I tried 4 times to get up. Go to the next slide, and I could not get up. And so what happened to me? Unbeknownst to me, I had suffered a stroke, but I tried 4 times to get up. And in trying to get up and I couldn't, my phone was in the car. My business phone was not charged. And so I slept on the carpet that night. So 24 hours passed. Needless to say, the next morning I called my sister, she called 911. They took me to Loma Linda Hospital, ER. I was there for 5 days. I shifted, you can go to the next slide, from after 5 days to an acute care facility. I was there for 2 weeks. I couldn't walk, I couldn't talk, I couldn't swallow, I couldn't do basic things. I had suffered that stroke. And after transferring from the acute care facility, I was there in a rehab facility for 4 months. Go to the next slide. For 4 months, there I was fighting to get my way back to being normal again. The people there in that facility were not nice to me. The CNAs did not want to do their job. And so I fought to get out of that facility. And I fought to get to Heritage Gardens, where I am now. I'm in an assisted living facility. And I fought and believed in myself from day one. You've got it in you. You can be restored. I had physical therapists who didn't believe in me, but I was determined. I go to physical therapy throughout the week, and I made sure I stay walking. When physical therapy stopped for me, they no longer had any ability for me for physical therapy. I hired my own caregiver to come to my facility where I am now, Heritage Gardens. And he comes 3 days a week to help make sure I'm walking, because I was determined to let him know that I will be restored. If you notice in this picture, you see here in the left picture, I'm walking with a quad cane walker because I have an AFO device on my leg. But I was determined in the name of Jesus to restore my own natural leg. So I focused on, with the right picture, doing sit to stand, squats, and all those. Next slide. And from that perspective, I kept on a mission to fight for my restoration. You can go to the next slide. Fighting for my restoration. I've been fighting ever since, from day one. And God has been healing my body and restoring me. I spoke in June at IHP for the Juneteenth event. And there I was featured on their website because I stood at the podium the entire 45 minutes that I spoke about the Juneteenth event. And that's Kelly. You guys should know Kelly because Kelly's a Toastmaster. I met Kelly when I competed in the area division contest and lost. I met her. That's the day she asked me to speak for her Juneteenth event. Next slide. The point is, as you move along, you stay focused on what you're doing. So I went from a quad king walker, still having the device on my leg. If you look at the picture where I'm in blue, I have no device on my leg. I repeat, no device on my leg because I was determined to fight to be restored. I had to fight them to get that walker that you see there in the right picture. They didn't want to give it to me, but I told them I will be restored. You can go to the next slide. And when you think about your life, you just need to show up and fight for yourself. I just recently got chosen as an influential woman 2025. That's the wall plaque they just sent me. You can get back to you. You can fight for you. It's all about your mindset and how you decide to show up. You can go to the next slide. So I want to tell you, Toastmasters, all those that like to do what you're doing, focus on the next level in your life. Don't stay stuck where you were. Be focused, be proactive. I'm writing a book called Success is a State of Mind because I'm telling this story. And you see, I already have my covers designed. I'm spelling the word success. If you see, I have that brain on there. Each word is spelling the word success. Synergy, unique, courageous, charismatic, enthusiasm, being strategic, and having the stamina. You have to make up your mind what you're going to do. And when I walk out this facility that I'm in, assisted living, I'm going to walk out, I'm going to walk across that stage. I'm going to tell my story about how God delivered me. The very last slide, please. The very last slide. Thank you for that last slide. Yes. So I praise God that I'm still involved in things that I do. These are some of the things that I did along the way, but I'm still president of Entrepreneur Toastmasters, and I went to our district awards because we won the award for most new members. So I'm telling you, show up, show them what you got, move to the next level. You can soar to the next level. I dare you, fellow Toastmasters.
Wow.
All these wonderful stories. Okay, we have our another speaker is Judy. I want to make sure, is David here? David is here. David, you will follow Judy Van Arsdale, and I think that's the last speaker.
Well,
So
you have Musa.
And Musa's here. Okay, I hadn't seen the screen, so we'll get Musa in there right after David. He gets the last word. Is that okay? Musa's the boss, so I got to make sure he does whatever he pleases. Okay. Well, you tell me otherwise. We'll go to Judy Van Arsdale with her topic, the 3-day fugitive. I hope that's not you, Judy. The 3-day fugitive, Judy Van Arsdale.
Ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you tonight, not as a Toastmaster, but as a fugitive, a criminal on the run, a wanted child. Yours truly, age 9 in Taiwan. It all began with one knuckle sandwich. My mom was Taiwanese. My natural father was an American. He gave me two things that made me stand out in Taiwan. Curly hair, almost blonde as a kid, and lighter skin. And let me tell you, kids notice everything. there was this one boy. Every single day, every recess, every lunch break, he would point at me and shout, "Yang Gui, Yang Gui," Chinese for foreign ghost. I knew I wasn't a ghost, but at that moment, I desperately wanted to disappear. But then, fueled by chocolate soy milk and third grade indignation, bang! I served up the only meal I knew how to cook, a knuckle sandwich. And oh, it landed. His nose did not just bleed, it burst. Blood didn't trickle, it poured. A puddle right there on the playground asphalt. The kind I had seen in movies right before a character dies. He ran one way, I ran the other. I knew I had killed him. A murderer at age 9. Naturally, I did what any responsible third grader would do. I skipped school. Not just for a day, not even 2, but 3 whole days. But I was careful. Every morning, I left the house at the proper time. Every afternoon, I came back exactly when expected. Nobody suspected a thing. For 3 days, I was enrolled in the school of nowhere, basically running my own witness protection program. Every day, I tiptoed down the street, peeking over my shoulders, as if the police or the Chinese FBI, or maybe even Scooby-Doo, were on my trail. For 3 days, I lived a double life. Innocent schoolgirl by day, and a fugitive by night. On the 3rd day, my teacher decided to send detectives to my house. Only these weren't your usual detectives. They were fellow students, armed with notebooks, questions, and lunch boxes. I froze when I saw them knocking at our door. My cover was blown. The jig was up. My mother was about to find out everything, or so I thought. Imagine my mom's face when she learned I'd been skipping school. And imagine my face when I realized she hadn't figured out the murder part yet. I confessed to truancy, but decided to leave out the homicide. Small details. The next day, I returned to school, heart pounding, ready to face justice, to confess, prepared for detention, prepared for life in prison with no recess. And there he was, the bully, alive, breathing, smirking. I blinked. He blinked. Turns out I hadn't killed him after all, just his ego. He had survived my knuckle sandwich, my fear, my imagination. Fellow Toastmasters, on that day, I learned 3 important lessons. First, never trust Hollywood blood. Second, never underestimate the power of a 9-year-old's imagination. And third, it takes more than a knuckle sandwich to get out of 3rd grade. Mr. Toastmaster.
Sorry, we didn't get to see you the whole time, but we got to hear you the whole time. So that was great. So thank you for being here. This makes me think, I wonder if you made all those speeches tonight were pathway speeches, you guys are going to make some progress. So hopefully, maybe there's an idea for clubs to have once in a while to have a speakathon where instead of just 2 or 3 speakers, you put 5 or 6 or 7 speakers. So we'll get in. Get quite a few into a meeting with evaluations that are written. Okay, we said our next speaker is David Flores, all the way from Orange County, and then after that we'll have Musa. So David Flores, you have a speech. I get to your title real quickly here. And it is, What Could Go Wrong? What could go wrong, David Flores? I can imagine knowing you a little bit. I know a little bit. You're going to have something good to tell us. What could go wrong, David Flores?
Well, thank you, Tom. Good evening, everybody. Well, I'll share the story of what happened in high school. In my high school, you have to realize that it was an old high school, and one of the things we had in our high school was an auditorium. But this wasn't just a regular auditorium. This was a full-blown auditorium built in the mid-1930s. And part of the elective classes we had was we called the stage crew, which I became a part of. You had a petition to be, it was an elective, and the stage manager would pick those who would be part of that stage crew. So I was on the stage crew, and one of our nemesis in the school was the vice principal of the high school. He did not like the stage crew. He thought it was a bunch of renegades and misfits. He didn't think we would be doing of any value, any part of the school itself. But as a stage crew, we were responsible for not only just maintaining the auditorium and also running any programs that some of the local schools have put on, even our own school or other schools. They put on band concerts, plays, all kinds of things in the evening after school. And as a stage crew, we had to be there to monitor those things. Well, then what happened one week is that not only did the local schools use the auditorium, but it was also contracted out to private entities. And they would put on, we've had ballets, we had concerts, we had political forums in there. Then one week, a local hospital decided they wanted to put together a fundraising follies. So this was going to be a fundraiser they put on where all the different staff would put on skits for a 2-day show, one on a Friday night, one on a Saturday. And it was going to be a big production. They even had a volunteer director that would help them put this whole follies together with all the props, the lighting, and everything else that would go on in any kind of a follies. Well, because they were staff, they would contract the auditorium from 7 in the evening till 12 o'clock at night. So we were there doing rehearsals every night, and at midnight, we'd finally clear them out, put everything away, get the auditorium locked up, close up the entire facility. And you got to remember that this whole building was part of the main building. It was a main building with the auditorium built onto it. The main building housed the staff, principal, vice principal, and everyone else. Well, our vice principal had a habit of parking his car on the side street at the end of the building and cutting through the auditorium by opening one of the outer doors and then walking through our foyer in the front by the stage and walking out another door to go to his office, as opposed to using the staff parking lot, which is the further away. Well, when we got off one night, the last rehearsal was like just after midnight, about 12:30 or so. By the time we wrapped things up, we were done. And our stage manager, Mr. Foltz, decided to go home, and we sat there and looked at each other and said, well, you know, I'm not going home. I'm not going to go back home and just 2 hours, 3 hours later, I have to come back to school. So we elected just to spend the night in the auditorium. So we parked ourselves in the auditorium. Larry, who had his motorcycle, decided to bring his motorcycle into the foyer of the front of the stage so it wouldn't stay outside. Well, as usual, our vice principal came in that morning as he walked into the auditorium through the outside door, saw the motorcycle and wondered what the heck's going on here. So we went up on the stage and found a couple of us sleeping on stage, asking who we were. And we said stage crew. And he goes, "What are you doing here? Did well, we spent the night." Because you spent the night, he stormed off in a huff. So when our stage manager came and we told him what happened, I said, he doesn't seem very happy about what was going on. And our stage manager was a grumpy old guy, been in the district for years, said he was going to be upset about it. He didn't care. Well, sure enough, he kept bringing up the idea that students are not allowed on campus after 10 o'clock unless they're coming in from a function that was school related. Well, our stage manager said, this is not school related. We have contracts that go on throughout the year, even in the summertime, and you guys contract these out. So what do you want us to do? We have to have a staff there in order to run the auditorium. So they came up with two conclusions. One conclusion would be that at 10 o'clock, we would leave and unionized people would come in and run the auditorium. Of course, that was going to cost them $8, $9 an hour at the time. Second option was, well, those of us who were old enough to have work permits or actually work, or 18 and over, we could become district employees. And that's what the solution was, because the district employee, we were going to only get paid just over $1 an hour. So now that was the solution. We became district employees, those of us who were 18 and over, to be able to run the auditorium. Well, what could go wrong? Obviously now we had keys to the auditorium. We had the ability to come in and out as we wanted. And then the only person that was upset about the whole thing was our stage manager, because now he had to fill out time cards for us and submit them, because we were employed and paid through the district, mainly the maintenance department. Well, we had to get even with our vice principal. And what we decided to do is we went down and we requisitioned 2 no trespass or no authorized personnel only. And we put them on the exterior doors that led into the auditorium. Then we requisitioned 2 what we call great grandmaster locks. The way the system works is that locks are dedicated by certain categories, and only those with certain keys can get into certain rooms and buildings. Well, the great grandmaster is like either for the top supervisor or the Department of Maintenance and stuff. So we changed those locks, put up the signs, and waited the next morning when Mr. Lindell, is his name, came, parked his car, got to the door, put his key in the lock, and it didn't go in. It didn't work at all. He was upset. He couldn't figure out what was going on. And as we sat there and snickered at him, as soon as he started walking back to his car, we walked up, used our keys, opened up the door, and walked on in. He was really mad. Now that's what could go wrong. So sure enough, now they told him they are not students. There are district employees. Until school starts, they're district employees. They're on the clock. So there's nothing you can do about it. Nothing we can do about it. That's what the district decided to do. So that's how it went down. And we had so many stories I could tell you, but I don't have time for it. But that just covers the moral stories. You have a vendetta against a certain group, be careful, because it come back and bite you in the derriere, which it did with our vice principal, because now we held the key for him to go either out, and he couldn't do it unless we gave him permission to do so. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, David. We're learning more and more about the mischievous nature of David Flores. I figured there was some of that behind there. Now we'll find out if there's any mischievous stories amongst our present district director, Musa Khair, with his speech, The Reward of the Village. The Reward of the Village, Musa Khair. Musa.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and guests. Elementary school was perfect and amazing for me. I loved it. And my dad always sent us to school, but my mom always worried. No, I want this kid to go to have some religion school. And the religion schools are a little bit expensive, and I think my dad probably didn't want to pay. He said, no, they are going to school, leave them alone. Then finally, mom and dad decided that we should have a weekend school, at least weekend religious school. And I know religious school because when you go there and you have a mistake, there is a big belt waiting for you. So I was afraid of it, but we decided to go to a weekend school. How many people from all of you have been sitting with cows, goats, and sheep as a classmate? That's what happened. We were sent to a weekend school to the teacher's name was Sheikh Ali, It's his home, but he has a big yard behind it with all the animals. And the big yard is amazing because you have all goat, sheep, hens, chickens, you call it. I know one of our speakers talk about animals, but I was mesmerized by the cows, how big they are. They're very huge. You know, I learned a little bit about how cows have multiple stomach and they eat at night and they also chew their cud at night. And the milking of cows. And with all the religion going on, he kept telling us, once you finish your subject, you could go play. All right, the play was perfect, but that's part of the learning I enjoyed very much. The drops of all the animals, the manure, how warm was it and how we were poking it, I remember. And the size of it sometimes, it's just like the size of my backpack, you know, huge drops from one big animal. At the same time, it's not only religion, we start learning a few more animals in science. If you guys know there is a grass, I don't know, there is a bulb in the grass. When you open it, you find worms in it. And that was another lesson we learned. One time I remember we stole Sheikh Ali's glasses and went out to do the sun and to burn a pepper, but we burned some of his crops and he was running. But what I would like to say is it's not only a religion school. It happened to be more than even my elementary school. It's a lab where we were touching animals, running this big field, holding small sheep, hugging them. I learned more than religion. And what I learned more is how there is a discipline. Sheikh Ali, with all the farm animals, and Mrs. Sheikh Ali pick up all the dows, the droppings, and makes them outside to dry for fires. And I learned actually, you could say nature 1, 2, 3, how they respect nature and how they use it as a fertilizer. And also I learned how they respect the land. The little farm, a little bit, they have carrots and tomatoes growing there. For us, every time we finish our religion school, we go back to help. And that helping was good. One of the most important thing I learned was life and death. There was a small lamb who were born still, and we have to bury her. At that age, I felt like, wow, this is a different. If I were directly at elementary school, I would not learn. So I was always happy to go to that weekend school. I didn't care, but the learning was continuous and the reward was magnificent. I could say the experience I got was overwhelming. I could not have gotten it from a regular elementary school. So the village, well, Mr. Sheikh Ali's village and his family taught me nature. They taught me love, death. They taught me more than life. And I always remember them. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Musa. This goes to show some of our most important learning doesn't necessarily happen in school. It happens part of that growth outside, and we heard that numerous occasions on the presentations tonight. Sharon, did you want to introduce your guests? One of our newer QSs is Sharon Rosario. Has a little bit of an introduction. So let's hear from you, and I will give you the microphone. There we go. It's right there. And
Share it. We can share it.
yep. Grab it like this.
Okay.
There you go.
Thank you so much, Tom. I would like to say what a lovely evening it was to see to showcase the variety of speakers that we had tonight to our guests. We had two lovely guests today. We had Gerald Winkle from the American Red Cross, who will be speaking at the next Speakers Bureau meeting, the first Wednesday of November. Yes, good clap for the American Red Cross and all the wonderful work they're doing. They are actually recruiting excellent speakers, aren't they, Tom? Perhaps our qualified speakers might get connected. I know you're looking for great speaking opportunities. I know I am, now that I'm a qualified speaker with our Speakers Bureau. The other guest that honored us today is my dear friend, Teresa Plain, who I just blanked on. Please excuse me, I'm tired. Teresa Plain is a dear friend from the Beaumont Writers Group. It's a community writers group. It's a large group. They are the ones helping put out our magazine twice a year. So thank you to this group and thank you for coming. We look forward to having more members from the writers group. And Teresa is actually a member now of the Endless Opportunity Club that meets in Cali Mesa. Back to you, Tom.
All right. So thank you for the little preview of coming attractions. Next week, I know I mentioned earlier, we have a qualified speaker candidate, and we may have some more on the program besides that. So thank you all for coming. By the way, if you missed part of the meeting this month and you want to hear last month's meeting, Rob Gunnerman puts it on YouTube, so it will be there for you to go back and see, along with almost all of our previous Speakers Bureau meetings in the past. You can go back and see what we have done in the past. We're looking forward to seeing you all November 1 at the district event, hearing 15 humorous speakers and hearing all the other educational programs along with the evaluation presentations. Well, 15, we hope. And we're looking forward to having you here on November the 5th for our next Speakers Bureau meeting. And thank you all for being here in person and online.